before the murder took place. Trevor McEuen had already left behind a trail of warning, signs clear, chilling signs that, if heeded, might have saved Aaron Martinez's life. These weren't vague suspicions or subtle red flags. They were brazen acts of violence and hate, committed in plain view of others. And yet, no one acted. The price of that silence? The life of an innocent man. July 2022. A terrifying act. Then, silence. In July of 2022, McEuen made his intentions unmistakably clear when he pointed a gun at Martinez and fired at his property. It was a moment seared into memory. A man consumed by hate, using a deadly weapon to threaten and destroy what Martinez held dear. All Martinez could do was report the incident to the police. But that report, like so many cries for help, faded into the void. The threats were ignored. The violence dismissed. Rather than facing consequences, McEuen slipped through the cracks of a system too numb to act. Martinez never pressed charges. Perhaps he felt unsupported. Perhaps he was simply exhausted, tired of living under constant threat from a neighbor who seemed capable of anything. At the time, McEuen was viewed as nothing more than a man with a temper, his actions brushed off as disturbing but not dangerous. No one truly looked closer. No one stepped in. He was allowed to remain in the community, even as he spiraled deeper into his rage. The warning bell rang, but no one listened. September 2024. A public threat on social media. Then came September 2024. McEwen's obsession boiled over once again, this time in full public view. Gone were the whispered threats. In their place, a bold, public declaration of hostility. He posted a photo of Martinez and his uncle on Instagram, with an open threat to shoot the uncle. This was no longer just disturbing behavior, was a declaration of war. McEuen wasn't hiding his hate. He wasn't afraid of consequences. He was daring someone to stop him. Social media, a platform for self-expression, became McEwen's weapon. And yet again, the clear threat was brushed aside. Those who saw the post, those who knew the history, no one stepped in. Maybe they thought it was just another dark joke, another angry outburst, but it wasn't. It was a flare shot into the sky, a desperate signal of what was to come. McEuen was sinking fast into the abyss of violence, and everyone let him. December 2024, the freedom of a criminal. Despite all the glaring signs that McEuen was dangerous, the justice system handed him freedom. In December 2024, he was released on a $2 million bail. This, after he had already fired a gun at Martinez's property, threatened to kill his uncle, and publicly displayed his hatred. And yet, the system gave him a second chance to change, but to strike. This wasn't a simple oversight. It was a catastrophic failure. How could someone so clearly violent, so transparently threatening, be allowed to walk free while his victim lived in fear? McEuen should have been behind bars. Instead, he was given room to act again. And that's exactly what he did. In the end, the violence everyone feared, but no one stopped, came to pass. Aaron Martinez was killed. Every warning sign had been there. Every opportunity to intervene had been missed. And when the tragedy finally unfolded, it wasn't a shocking twist. It was the inevitable result of neglect, a preventable loss wrapped in silence and inaction. Trevor McEuen, a 32-year-old man from Forney, Texas, shocked his community when he was charged with the murder of Aaron Martinez, his Hispanic neighbor, on May 1, 2023. But Martinez's death wasn't just a tragedy. It was the final chapter in a long, dark story of violence, hatred, and society's failure to act on the warning signs. McEuen wasn't a killer who emerged out of nowhere. He was the product of deep wounds, radical beliefs, and a growing lack of empathy that ultimately erupted in a brutal, irreversible act. A past rooted in hatred and hostility. Nothing about McEwen's descent into violence was accidental. The venom in his words had long hinted at the storm brewing beneath the surface. He once told Martinez flat out, "Hispanics aren't welcome in this neighborhood." That wasn't just a slur, it was a window into a mind warped by prejudice. In July 2022, Martinez reported to police that McEuen had aimed a gun at him and fired at his property. It was a clear, actionable threat, yet the system faltered. 1 year later, in September 2024, the threats escalated. McEuen once again targeted Martinez and his family, pushing them into a prolonged state of fear. But once more, the warning signs were ignored. There were countless opportunities to intervene, to recognize the danger McEuen posed not just to Martinez, but to anyone who didn't fit into his rigid worldview. Instead, his aggression was brushed off, dismissed as isolated incidents rather than the symptoms of something far more dangerous. The criminal mind, antisocial personality disorder, ASPD. McEwen's actions weren't sudden explosions of rage. They were the outward expression of a deeply disordered mind. Psychologists suggest he may have exhibited signs of antisocial personality disorder, ASPD, condition marked by a chilling absence of empathy, a lack of remorse, and a tendency to manipulate others to achieve personal gain. People with ASPD often blame the world for their own destructive behavior. They don't reflect, don't regret, they justify. And McEuen did exactly that. He didn't just threaten Martinez, he acted on his convictions with violence. To him, Martinez represented a threat to the order he believed in. His hatred wasn't just personal, it was ideological. McEuen viewed his actions not as crimes, but as part of some twisted crusade. This distorted mindset allowed him to turn a neighbor into an enemy, and eventually, into a target. What should have been nothing more than a difference in background became, in McEwen's eyes, a reason to kill. Trevor McEuen didn't become a murderer by accident. He was shaped by years of unchecked hatred, false beliefs, and an alarming detachment from reality. His violent actions weren't random. They were fueled by a worldview built on fear, control, and judgment. When he looked at Aaron Martinez, he didn't see a fellow human being. He saw a problem to be solved, a presence to be erased. And so, in his mind, Martinez's death wasn't just an act of violence, it was a grim necessity. But the truth is far more devastating. Martinez's death was preventable. It was the result of inaction by neighbors, by law enforcement, by a society that too often ignores hate until it turns into horror. McEuen, a man who might have once been saved, was allowed to spiral into fanaticism, believing more and more in his righteous hatred. And when he finally committed the ultimate crime, he didn't feel guilt. He felt justified. To him, it wasn't murder. It was fulfilling a belief he had long held on tono, matter how wrong, how brutal, or how irreversible. Despite clear warnings, McEuen was granted bail, leaving a community in fear. In December 2024, Trevor McEuen was released on bail, staggering $2 million, despite mounting evidence that he posed a significant and immediate danger. With a history of violent threats, racially charged outbursts, and online intimidation, many are asking the same question: how could this man still be walking free? Aaron Martinez, the man who would later become McEwen's victim, lived under a constant shadow of fear. And yet, the man who threatened him publicly, repeatedly, and with chilling conviction, was allowed to roam free. The question is no longer just why did McEuen kill? It's why did the justice system let him? A justice system that looked away. McEuen didn't hide his intent. He posted open threats on Instagram, accompanied by photos of Martinez and his uncle, clear, targeted signals that he saw them as enemies. These weren't offhand comments or edgy jokes. They were red flags, loud and unmistakable. And yet, instead of being held in custody, McEuen walked free, backed by a bond most believed should never have been granted. His actions were not just aggressive, they were brazen. He showed no fear of the law, no remorse, no pause. Instead, he acted with a chilling sense of entitlement, believing he had the right to threaten and intimidate at will. That kind of mindset doesn't quietly fade away, it escalates. And in McEwen's case, it did exactly that. Systemic failure in handling dangerous offenders. Trevor McEuen isn't the first man the system has failed to contain, and tragically, he won't be the last. His case highlights a deep flaw in the way our justice system assesses and responds to threats. Often, the focus is on hard evidence and provable intent, but behavior like McEwen's violent, erratic, and ideologically extreme isn't always neatly documented. Still, it was there. And it was obvious. The courts may have lacked the concrete evidence needed to deny bail outright. Maybe his legal defense exploited loopholes. But regardless of legal technicalities, a man this dangerous should not have been free. The fact that he was only proves how ill-equipped the system is to deal with threats that fall in the gray area between potential and imminent. Experts in criminal psychology could likely have warned early on. McEuen wasn't just angry, he was a killer waiting for an excuse. But no one listened. The warnings were dismissed, and the consequences were fatal. The true cost of misjudging danger. Allowing McEuen to walk free didn't just risk future harm, it delivered it. On May 1, 2023, the unthinkable happened. Except it wasn't unthinkable. It had been predicted, feared, and most devastatingly ignored. Trevor McEuen killed Aaron Martinez, a man who had spent months living in terror, hoping someone would step in before it was too late. The pain for Martinez's family goes beyond grief. It's the helplessness, the knowledge that this didn't have to happen, that the system failed them not once, but over and over again. And McEuen? He continued to live his life as if he were untouchable, because in many ways, he was. A bitter warning we cannot ignore. This tragedy isn't just about a murder. It's about every moment society ignored a warning sign. Every time someone said, "It's not that serious," and every decision that prioritized process over protection. When violence is minimized, when threats are dismissed as idle words, we open the door to irreversible consequences. If this case teaches us anything, it's this. We must stop waiting for blood to be spilled before we act. Threats, no matter how small they seem, carry weight. And in the case of Trevor McEuen, those threats were the blueprint for murder. We can't afford to be silent anymore. The escape of Trevor McEuen. A betrayal of justice. The trial of Trevor McEuen, charged with murder driven by racial hatred, was expected to be a turning point. It was supposed to be the moment when justice would be served, and when the victim's community could finally be heard. On May 5, 2025, the Kaufman County Courthouse in Texas was set to begin the long-awaited proceedings. Reporters, activists, and dozens of citizens who had followed the case closely gathered early that morning outside the courthouse. But McEuen never showed up. A calculated disappearance. Around 6 a.m. that day, law enforcement monitoring McEuen noticed something alarming. The signal from his electronic ankle monitor had suddenly gone dark. Officers rushed to his residence only to find it empty. He was gone. A full-scale manhunt was launched within hours. Less than 10 kilometers away, authorities discovered an old storage shed near the edge of a wooded area smoldering with smoke. Inside, they found the severed remains of McEwen's ankle monitor and his mobile phone, both destroyed in the fire. This wasn't a spontaneous act. Every sign pointed to a carefully planned escape. McEuen had clearly spent time preparing, cutting off his monitor, torching his trail, and vanishing before sunrise while the city slept. Burning the shed wasn't just about erasing evidence. It was a bold message to law enforcement. You still can't catch me. Public outrage and a crisis of trust. News of McEwen's escape sparked immediate public outrage. For the family of Aaron Martinez, a man murdered in what many consider a racially motivated hate crime, it felt like another violent blow. He threatened us, got bail, and now he's on the run. Who is the justice system really protecting? We asked for justice. All we've gotten is failure. Lucia Martinez, sister of the victim. Across social media, anger boiled over. How could a known violent offender, charged with a racially motivated killing, be granted bail in the first place? Why wasn't he under tighter surveillance? And perhaps the most painful question of all, is the justice system truly designed to protect victims or simply to process defendants? Manhunt and federal involvement. Within hours of his disappearance, Kaufman County issued a nationwide arrest warrant. McEwen's face flooded news outlets, local television stations, and social media feeds. A $10,000 reward was announced for information leading to his capture. The FBI officially joined the search, labeling McEuen a high-risk fugitive with the potential for further violence. Alerts were sent to border checkpoints, airports, and interstate transit hubs. Authorities warned he could be attempting to flee Texas or even the United States. More than a fugitive, a symbol of systemic failure. Trevor McEuen isn't just a fugitive. He has become a symbol of a system that struggles to strike a balance between protecting a defendant's rights and ensuring public safety. His escape on the very morning his trial was to begin highlights a disturbing flaw in how we assess threat levels and enforce pre-trial conditions. The real question now isn't just where is McEuen? It's what will we do to make sure there isn't a second McEuen? The unforgivable brutality. The murder of Aaron Martinez. The heartbreaking truth is this. Despite countless warning signs, Trevor McEuen carried out a brutal act of violence on May 1, 2023. When unchecked rage and hatred are left to fester, when early signs of violence are ignored, the result is often irreversible. And in this case, the result was the death of Aaron Martinez, an innocent man who had spent months living in constant fear of his neighbor's threats. This wasn't a random tragedy. It was a slow-burning disaster, seen from miles away, that no one stopped. Aaron Martinez's death. A cool, calculated end. Aaron Martinez didn't just die, he was failed. His death was the culmination of McEwen's long history of hate, violence, and emotional detachment. McEuen wasn't a stranger to the system. He was a known threat, vocal, visible, and escalating. The murder of Martinez wasn't the loss of just one life. It was the collapse of multiple safety nets, legal, social, and moral. It was the moment everything that could have been prevented wasn't. Imagine the pain his family feels, not just in mourning Aaron's death, but in knowing it never had to happen. This wasn't just a killing, it was the final punctuation mark in a sentence full of ignored warnings, missed chances, and poor decisions. It was a tragedy paved by neglect. The system's regret too little, too late. In the aftermath, the pressing question is, do the authorities feel regret? Do the courts, prosecutors, and those who set McEuen free reflect on the cost of their choices? The reality is, no amount of remorse can bring Aaron back. Whether the system admits its faults or not, the outcome is irreversible. But if there's anything to salvage from this loss, it's the lesson, the urgent need for better early warning systems, and for decisive action when individuals show clear signs of violence. A costly lesson for society. Aaron's death stands as a brutal, costly lesson. Every warning sign, every threat, every act of aggression, no matter how small, must be taken seriously. Had the system acted sooner, had society truly listened, this tragedy might never have happened. We can't change the past, but we can demand change moving forward. We can raise awareness of these warning signs. We can advocate for systems that respond swiftly, intelligently, and with humanity. Timely intervention saves lives, and each of us has a role in making our communities safer. Final words, a message we cannot ignore. The story of Trevor McEuen and Aaron Martinez isn't just another true crime case. It is a wake-up callous siren warning us of what happens when signs of danger go unaddressed. This is not about one murder. It's about a pattern of failure, a dangerous complacency, and a silence that cost a man his life. Every red flag matters. Every threat, every act of cruelty or obsession might be the beginning of something much darker. We cannot afford to brush them aside. We cannot let future tragedies play out the way this one did. We must act. We must listen. And if we do, we might stop the next Aaron Martinez from becoming another name on a list of preventable deaths.